Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining JINSA for our weekly webinar update on the situation in Israel, Gaza, and the other fronts on which Israel is fighting. I'm Blaise Mishtal, JINSA's Vice President for Policy, and I'm honored, as always, to be joined by two of our IDF fellows, Major General retired Yaakov Amidror, a JINSA Distinguished Fellow and former National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Major General Amikan Norkin, former commander of the Israeli Armed Forces and also a JINSA Distinguished Fellow. Generals, thank you very much for being with us. I know that much of the attention, at least here in Washington, over the past couple of days has been on the growing divide and disagreement between the Biden administration and Israel over the looming Rafah operation. But maybe before we discuss that, I wanted to ask General Amidror, could you give us sort of an operational update on what has been happening over the past couple of days? We have seen the IDF return to Al-Shifa hospital for a major operation that has resulted in the capture and killing of hundreds of terrorists. We have seen increased activity in the West Bank as well. So could you give us a rundown of what's been going on?
Yeah, I think it will be wise to open with the operation in Shifa. Operation in Shifa now is giving you an example how Israel wants to handle the area after dismantling of the Hamas battalions and brigades. After breaking the command and control system, and now what we want to do is to clean the area from the remnants of the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. What we did in the last few months in the north part of the Gaza, all the forces pulled out from the area, all the IDF forces, but we are raiding into the area from time to time. One of the raids was to capture the center of communication and intelligence of Hamas, which we knew that it is somewhere in the north, but we didn't know where exactly. After we pulled out our forces from other sources like materials which had been confiscated in the headquarters of Hamas and interrogation of captured Hamas terrorists, we understood where is the exact place, because you cannot do it if you don't know the exact place. And we went into this place with forces which surrounded it. It was a little bit complicated to go down under the ground to find the exact place, but the intelligence that we brought from this place a month and a half ago was something unbelievable. It will take us a lot of time to read all the information to understand the meaning of it, but it helps us to understand what Hamas built under Gaza, and most of the secrets revealed in this operation. The operation that we are speaking about now, the operation in Shifa, is another example. Here we are not speaking about infrastructure, but immediate intelligence which was gathered by our intelligence, the military one and the civilian one, Shabak and the IDF intelligence. And we understood that there is a gathering of huge number of terrorists from Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Shifa. We destroyed the underground part of the compound, and they used the on-ground compound. And we raided in a different way. We reached the place without even one shot. Nothing happened in the way. It was led by our SEAL unit, Shayetet 13, and under the command of an armor brigade with a lot of support of the Nahal brigade, which is infantry brigade. So that was the combination. In area which in the past we had to come with 3 divisions, we came with probably 2.5 battalions. But the secret was to reach the place secretly, to surround it, and then no one can get out. And we succeeded to do it. We arrested almost 400 guys. All the commanders of the north of the Islamic Jihad had been captured. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them. And we know from the spokesman of the IDF there are others which is not ready to reveal their names before the interrogation will be ended, because they will lead us to other places and other targets. So that was a huge success. We killed some of them inside the hospital, and most of them surrendered. But still, it shows you how both the Islamic Jihad and the Hamas is using hospitals. By the way, I was told by one of the commanders that if there is a place in which there is a mosque, a school of UNRWA, and hospital, the probability of that area to be very important for Hamas is very, very high. In most of the cases, that was a cover for underground center of Hamas or Islamic Jihad. They called it the Holy Triangle. The Holy Triangle, the school, mosque, and hospital.
If I could ask you about the Shifa operation, General, because we've heard critics, including from the Biden administration, say that the fact that Israel cleared Shifa Hospital several months ago, finished its operations in the north, pulled out brigades from the north, and now you're seeing a reconstitution of Hamas terrorists in places like Shifa that had previously been cleared, is an indication in some way they're claiming of the failure of Israel's strategy. So why are we seeing them able to return to these places?
I'm sure that those who said it do not have a clue about military operations. It's just a good testimony for the success of the first stage, to break the system, to dismantle the battalions and the brigade. And now we succeeded to come back to Shifa secretly in the middle of Gaza. It means that Hamas doesn't have any system around. And we reached the place with 2.5 battalions, unlike the 2.5 divisions which were needed at the beginning. And it will take another 6 to a month to clean the area in such raids into the center of the north, the south, the center of the center, all around Gaza. Will be very active in the next year. And after dismantling Hamas in Rafah as well, we'll go back again and again whenever we will have enough intelligence to go back and to kill and to eliminate. Either it is infrastructure which remain and we didn't know about it, as I told you about the center of communication and intelligence, or it will be terrorists that we have to kill, like this operation in Shifa. So those who said it do not understand in military science at all, and it does not surprise me. I mean, it's from people in uniform, you don't hear such nonsense. It's the second phase of the war. You conquer it, and then you clean it, or mopping up in American terms, and we are mopping it up. So that will happen again and again and again and again, as we did in the center. We killed number 3 in the organization, somewhere in the center, in a place which we had been very close to before. In the same place again, we never had been, but close to this area. And it will happen again and again in the next year, when we are cleaning Gaza from all the remnants of Hamas, either it is infrastructure or terrorists. And even now, if a month from now we will have an information that they are gathering again in Shifa, we'll go again to Shifa. Why not to be there a third time? If there is a reason to come and to kill them, we will be there. So this is the situation in the north part of Gaza, in most parts of the center, and after we will finish in Khan Yunis within a few days, that will be the situation in Khan Yunis as well. The area that was not touched by our ground forces, but once we made a special operation to release 3 hostages in Rafah. Other than that, we didn't go into Rafah with ground forces. For going into Rafah, we need preparations. Why? Because 1.2 million Palestinians moved from the north or from the center to the south. They had the hope that the Egyptians will let them to get out of Gaza Strip. The Egyptians decided that not even one Palestinian will cross the border. They despise them. They're afraid from Hamas. And they didn't let anyone to cross the border. So there are now 1.2 or 4 million Palestinians around Rafah, area that before the war there were 250,000 or something like that. And we understand, and the Americans emphasize it all the time, but we understand it without the advice of the Americans. But because of the advice, we are taking it more seriously, that we have to move at least 1 million people from this area before we are going to dismantle the Hamas battalions. Now, when we have much more information about Hamas and who was a member of Hamas, it will be easier to make the selection and to make all the efforts that the Hamas terrorists will not go out with the population, with the civilian population. They are going through a kind of a bottlenecks in the way in which we can check who is who, not the children and women, but men. We have to prepare some areas, safe havens for them, and we have a plan how to do it and where to do it. Of course, a lot of help will come from outside, from the Emirates, which are very good in this area of building and helping the Palestinians, the Egyptians, which made some efforts, and only then, it will take 2 to 3 weeks, only then Israel can go militarily into Rafah. The question is,
General, if we could,
when to begin,
pause on Rafa for just a second.
Two sentences. When to begin the process? It very much depends if we have a deal about the hostages that will postpone everything for 6 weeks, or we don't have a deal. And if we don't have a deal, we can begin immediately after the Ramadan, 2 weeks from now.
Got it. Let me ask General Norkin sort of both generally about the role of the Air Force in the current cleaning up phase of operations in the north and the center, as General Amador described. But also, if you could tell us a little more, give us any more specifics on the strike that killed Marwan Issa, the Hamas number 3 in the past week.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'm the former Israeli Air Force commander, not armed forces. In Israel, it's a very sensitive issue, so this is the reason that I'm speaking about it. And you know that today it's the first day of Purim holiday in Israel, and of course for the Jews around the world. So it's maybe a good reason to smile a little bit after those 5 months. Having said that, first of all, what we did already in the north part of Gaza Strip, we achieved operational control. Once you said and you use this terminology of operational control, it's meaning that you can operate and do missions inside this area. It's not, there is no meaning that there is no one think that there is 0 terrorists over there. And this is what General Amador mentioned, that once you're a professional guy in the military, you understand that the terrorists, will be always there. Even in Judea and Samaria, area that we fully control, and we already arrested more than 1,000 terrorists in the last 5 months, there are still a lot to do. So once we achieve operational control, we can do such a mission like in this one in Shifa hospital. From the intelligence point decision, and once the intelligence get into the systems, in a very short time, the Israeli forces get into the hospital. General Amidror maybe forgot that the Air Force is also there with a lot of UAVs to support the intelligence from the above, and of course with the Apache helicopters. So they got always the ground forces do nothing in Gaza without aerial support, and this is one of the successful activities in this war in Gaza. About Marwan Issa, I think that it's a very positive and a very nice treatment for the IDF and the Shin Bet, because we attack from the air high-rank terrorist in his room that its location is more than 20 meters underground. Imagine what kind of intelligence you need. Imagine what kind of aerial operation planning you need. What kind of ammunition you need. I'm not sure that anyone around the world ever did such a mission, and it's not the first time. Marwan Issa is not the first. We already did it to Randur and some of others in lower ranks. So the capabilities that the Israeli armed forces, especially the intelligence and the Air Force, developed in the last few years to act from the air against targets, underground targets, it's a very unique one, and I'm very proud of it. So this is about Marwan Issa and about Shifa operation. And just to be more precise about the numbers, till now they killed 120 terrorists in the Shifa operation, and more than I think 400 terrorists. We took them, and now we can learn from them a lot about other targets, other areas, other terrorists. And I think that this is part of the situation once you fight against their organization inside a very tight terror urban territory.
Thank
Rafa,
you, General.
would you
Go
like me
ahead.
to speak about Rafa, or you would like to?
Well, I had one more question for General Amador about Shifa, because you had mentioned that you found both Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters there, and even high-level PIDG commanders. Has that been fairly common throughout this conflict, Hamas and PIDG working together, or have they largely been conducting separate operations, or what has PIDG's role in the conflict been?
No, they have, each of them has his own structure, but on the ground that they cooperated. And whenever we concentrated in an area, we took them both. We didn't differentiate between the two organizations when we are there on the ground. And this is only an example how they're cooperating. In this case, they came together to the Shifa hospital, and yes, we are very lucky. The best Air Force in the Middle East became Army Air, and this is very helpful. You don't see today any ground forces moving in Gaza and even in the West Bank without cover of the Air
Yeah.
Force, either by F-16 and F-15 or by drones, which are making the job very close to the ground forces, very, very close to the ground forces.
Blaise, I would like to take Rafa and from Rafa to step
Please.
forward to the main issue now. So as General Amidor described the situation in Rafah, I think that there are three main challenges. The first one is the operational challenge because there are many terrorists over there on ground, underground, like in any other place in Gaza. The second one is the people. We don't want to to have too many casualties and collateral damage, so we need to move them from the Rafah area, at least most of them. And the third one that we should mention is Egypt, because the operational activities near the Egyptian border, and we need to be sure that no weapon or systems are smuggling between Sinai to Gaza Strip. This is a major mission for the IDF, and I'm sure that there are more than one way to solve it, but I think that those three are the main challenges. But I'm not sure that between the American administration, the Israeli government, the main issue is the operational questions. The main issue is the Israeli legitimacy. Israel lost, unfortunately, the legitimacy in many areas around the globe. And unfortunately, we did some mistakes and we didn't take care about this mission as we should. And we need to act now. And I think that maybe the American military and the American government would like to, some of the aspects is to support the Israeli activities by having more legitimacy around the world with the international community, because the war won't end in the next months. We are going to fight in Gaza at least until the end of the year. And once we see every day other nations like Canada, Italy, Great Britain, that the governments all over declare that they won't sell any weapons to Israel, or so from some of them there is nothing to buy from, but it's a very negative steps for the Israeli legitimacy. So Rafah is not just an operational challenge. Rafah is a strategic issue because the legitimacy issue, because Israeli might lose the freedom of action if we are not going to take the right decisions.
Well, the irony there, of course, is that by criticizing or demanding that Israel explain the Rafah operation, the U.S. is, I think, helping undermine that legitimacy instead of doing what a good partner should, which is help make the case for the need and the legitimacy of the Rafah operation. But to that point, I mean, let me ask, I think we all know that regardless of what Israel did, and even if Israel had the best messaging in public diplomacy, I mean, there would be critics around the world who would be claiming that Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself. So given that we know that legitimacy is a precious commodity and a time-limited commodity for Israel, why has it taken this long to launch the Rafah operation? given the need to cut off Gaza from Egypt for the smuggling reasons you talked about, General Norkin, why was Rafah saved until last? Why didn't this operation happen sooner? General Amador?
I think that I will comment in a very short one. I think it's going to be part of our debrief, because maybe we did some mistakes and we should get into Rafah in the beginning. Maybe, I don't know. But it's a question that we should answer. But now, especially in the Ramadan holiday, it's not the right time to do huge mistakes. And as General Amidor mentioned, we need to prepare ourselves. So we shouldn't do it from today to tomorrow. It will take time to evacuate the people. It will take time to get into Rafah. But now, once we hear after 5 months and we didn't get into Rafah, I think that we should do it with more legitimacy from the international community.
General Amador, thoughts
Yes,
on why not before?
Gaza, when people ask why we don't something do in the battlefield, I learned through the years that the best plan in the battlefield is the one which was not implemented, because you can say whatever you want about it. But there were two reasons why we didn't make it. We decided to begin the war in the center of gravity of Hamas, and the center of gravity of Hamas is in the north part of Gaza. And what you see, all the centers that we find, all the headquarters that we find under the ground, and I think that it was wise to go first to the center of gravity. And Hamas lost the part of his able to maneuver after we took and utilized the connection between the north and the south. Each place for itself is a challenge, but they cannot move forces from one side to another, and they lost the ability and the flexibility. First. Second, we wanted, as one of the division commanders told me, we want to come to every point with a mass which allow us to go over the preparations of Hamas under the ground and on the ground. And remember, in every place we had to fight both underground and in the ground and on the ground, and to make it in parallel and to coordinate it. For that, you need special forces in very high capability. I'm not sure that we could do the force operation in the south. I'm not sure that we had enough forces. Why? Because we didn't want to bring in the division which is now doing the whole job in Khan Yunis, number 98. We didn't know what will happen in the north, and we didn't want to bring it in, and then if something happened in the north, we don't have enough forces to move immediately to the north. So the decision was to begin in the center of gravity. And at the end, I think that some of the planners of the military plan had them in mind as the Palestinians, that maybe the Egyptians will let Palestinians to move to the other side of the border, and it will be easier for us to deal with the people which will remain in Gaza. I told them from the beginning, knowing the Egyptians so many years, no even little chance that they will allow Palestinians to take refuge in Egypt. It's not an option in the Egyptian vocabulary. But I think that some of our planners had it in mind. But the main problem was the division which we wanted to keep out of Gaza in case something will happen in the north.
So now that Israel is preparing for a Gaza offensive or a Rafah offensive, and moving those 1+ million people is going to be one of the challenges that needs to be undertaken before the operation can begin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Egypt is not an option, as you just said, General Amador.
Yeah.
So how is Israel going to tackle that challenge?
There are areas in the center which we intend to designate as safe havens, as we did in the beginning of the war about the Muasi. We designated it. We will build a kind of infrastructure with help from Egypt, the Emirates, and others of tents. We will direct all the humanitarian help into this area. It is not going to be an easy place. It's not a resort, but it's a battlefield, and we have to take care for refugees in the middle of the battlefield. And in the modern, I don't think that in many modern wars, including those which democratic countries fought, someone took make all the arrangements which we are doing for refugees from within the society which is fighting against us. I don't remember the Americans moving population in Mosul or Fallujah and helping them to find safe havens near the battlefield. But it's special situation because the Egyptians don't let anyone to get out, so it's an enclave in which we have to handle all our operations, and this is part of our preparations, and we will do it. And only after we do it, we have the ability to go militarily into Rafah. Rafah is supposed to be the weakest brigade of Hamas, but because so many terrorists move to this area, I believe that, and because it is the last stronghold of Hamas, I believe that it is not going to be an easy journey. And it's an opportunity to kill many terrorists, but at the same time, it will be kind of hard rock to go through.
Speaking of the provision of humanitarian assistance, one of the things that Jinsa's Gaza Assessment Task Force heard about when they were in Israel a couple of weeks ago was the attempt to establish security bubbles or local areas where the IDF could work with local Gazans who could help provide security or the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Has there been any progress made in identifying or working with those? You're on mute, General Amador.
The level of, there are people probably which do not have enough food, but there is no starving or people dying from lack of food in Gaza. It's fake news. I don't know if you saw the Al Jazeera footage in which they describe the problems of a family in Gaza to make the iftar, the food gathering to at the end of the day and the fast, and to begin the time that they can eat at night. It's called iftar. And the guy from Al Jazeera is speaking about the problems of this family, and a child in the age of 12 ran to the camera and say they are all lying, and went away. No, there is enough food. It's very costly because the strong people took control of the food and they are selling it in the market in high prices. There, we brought in a lot of humanitarian help. Either it is food, water, oil to needed places. There are some field hospitals inside Gaza and outside Gaza. So the humanitarian situation, the crisis described with a lot of exaggeration by Hamas and by those who are buying Hamas lies, like the Mr. Borrell from United European Union and others. There is no real crisis inside the Gaza. Maybe here and there are problems. It's a battlefield still. we
But
didn't find
is Israel able to find Gazans to work with? Is it able to identify clans or leaders who are?
it's not a great success up till now, and it's clear why, because Hamas will kill anyone who will do it. Now, those who are looting the tracks are either Hamas for himself or strong families which are taking it into their family and then selling it outside the market in very high prices. No, we didn't find yet a way how to distribute it. We are bringing a lot of food into the Gaza Strip, but we didn't find yet a good way to distribute it. Today, we had some success with, I think, 12 trucks, but that is only part of what is needed. It's a problem, no question.
Yeah. Let me ask General Norkin one question about the Northern Front, and then I have a long list of questions from our audience that I want to put to both of you, and I encourage the audience, if you have additional questions, please submit them using the Q&A function. But General Norkin, we've seen over the last week that the Israeli Air Force seems to be hitting deeper and deeper into Lebanon and Syria as well, as far as Damascus. Can you tell us a little bit about the strategy and what the IDF is trying to accomplish in those countries?
Well, it's not just Lebanon and Syria. Today afternoon, we intercept a missile in the Red Sea. So all the fronts are active fronts. The American coalition do a lot in Yemen, but still the Houthis launch missiles, especially cruise missiles toward Israel. And we intercept one of them, and the day before yesterday, one of those missiles hit an open field with no casualties. So all the fronts are active fronts. In Syria, usually we avoid weapon support from Hezbollah. All the weapons that came from Iran into Syria and from Syria to Lebanon, the IDF is destroying all those weapon storage, and by that we avoid them from getting into Lebanon. Those weapon systems, usually the advanced Iranian air defense UAVs, suicide UAVs, or missiles. So I think that it's a very important mission in Syria. And of course, in the last few months, we also attacked a few targets and killed some of the Iranian commandos, as been published at the media. In Lebanon, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, there are parallel campaigns. One campaign is a ground campaign with a short-range rocket, and from one side, and the Israeli artillery from the other side. And the other one is the aerial campaign, because Hezbollah is trying to intercept the Israeli airplanes. And because of that, the Israeli Air Force is attacking targets deep into the north part of Lebanon, like Baalbek or other areas. And I think that Hezbollah completely understand that it's not the same campaign. And since the war began, we are flying all over Lebanon. We took again the freedom of action to be able to fly above Beirut with our UAVs and combat fleet, and it's a very good situation for Israel. So although we see those actions at the north part of Israel, there is no real sign for escalation, because Hezbollah is still launching rockets to the same areas that he already launched the last 5 months. So I think that if we are going to have, and I hope that we are going to have a deal, and some of the hostages might come back home to Israel, and we might have a ceasefire, it's a good opportunity to understand what is going to be at the north, because the ceasefire in Gaza might be a potential, let's say, step to move forward with the diplomatic activities between the international community, mainly by the United States, Israel, and Lebanon.
Thank you, General. So let me pivot to the questions from the audience. We have quite a few this week, so I apologize if we can't get through them all. Let me start with Charles Wax, who says, Canada has announced it's holding up arms transfers to Israel, but they are also buying Iron Dome from Israel. Why doesn't Israel hold up Iron Dome, which would be more important to Canada than the few weapons they are selling to Israel? Thoughts, General Amador?
Escalations in the international community is something that you know how to begin, you don't know how to end. This declaration of Canada, we have to see what they're stopping, what they don't. They say that all the agreements which had been signed till January will be completed, and so let's see what will happen. I mean, to go from declaration to declaration and to make more escalation in this area, I think we should be very cautious. As a little country, we don't want to escalate in this. But if at the end will not be any other opportunity, you have to take into the table every issue. We have interest. Canada has interest, and if they don't take into account ours, if there is something, I'm not sure that we can do something with Canada. They have good neighbors. This is the problem of Canada.
General Norkin, I think this question is for you from Martin Quinn, who asks, are you saying that the Islamic holy month of Ramadan is not an appropriate time for Israel to launch a new ground operation into Rafah, due mainly to world opinion?
Let me answer the question, okay? It's not just Rafah. Ramadan is very sensitive time in the Muslim world. Why? You are fast the whole day, and you're supposed to be very into the religious cycle and psychological. It will be wise not to escalate during Ramadan if there is no need. We went to Shifa in the Ramadan. And if it will be another operation like that, we will do it. We are now in Tulkarem in the West Bank in the middle of Ramadan. When there is a need, we have to do it. If there is no real need and another 2 weeks will not make the situation different, we should be more sensitive and don't do it. And it's not just the Air Force, it is about everything. The Israel in the Middle East has to take into account the other side culture and the other side religion, and not to harm the situation by acting when it is not really needed. In Ramadan, it's a good example how you take into account the other side, the culture.
Completely agree.
All right. We have a couple of questions here from our very own John Hanna, the Randy and Charles Wax Senior Fellow here at GINSA. So let me try to combine them. The Biden administration seems to think that some combination of diplomacy with Egypt to shut down all the smuggling tunnels and then very targeted counter-terror operations are going to be enough to neutralize Rafah. Does that make sense to you? And if not, what size force do you think that Israel will need in order to enter into Rafah, and how long will it take it to put that force together?
There is now offer here. People are speaking about convincing all the terrorists in Rafah to get out and to be expelled to other countries. This is practically to dismantle the battalions of Hamas in Rafah. If that will be the solution, I think that we should consider it. It's maybe a wise solution. If you speak about limit raids into specific points in Rafah, it's with all due respect, this is not what we want. What we want is to dismantle the 4 battalions in Rafah and not let Hamas the ability to argue that the Hamas in Rafah is survived, and this is the beginning of the regrouping of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. If this offer of surrender all the Hamas members will be surrendered and expelled out of the Rafah, out of the Gaza Strip, will not be accepted by Hamas. With all due respect to all the advices that we are getting from all the world, Israel will go into Rafah in 2 stages. One, to move the people, and then to go militarily into Rafah. The force which is needed is like Khan Younis, something around less than full division, with special forces and a lot of help from the Air Force, either drones or airplanes, and that will be done because we cannot let Hamas to be immune in Rafah. It's logically, it's stupid.
Our next question is from Pamela Dean, who asks, are the Hamas and PIDGE commands still well organized, or are they fragmented and in disarray?
Other than in Rafah and some enclaves in the center, they are disintegrated.
All right. And then a question from Richard Wilkins about the UN Security Council resolution that the U.S. has been talking about recently, calling for an immediate ceasefire and hostage release. Is that something that it's discussed with Israel? What is Israel concerned about?
I know that
U.S. efforts at the UN.
I heard our ambassador in the United Nations saying that he worked very close with the representative of the United States of America about the declaration, and this is, by the way, the deal. If the hostage will be released, it will be a long ceasefire, at least 6 weeks. Let's see if there is a deal. If there is a deal, both parts of the decision will be implemented together: release of the hostages and pause in the war. If there is no deal, Israel is not going to any ceasefire or pause.
General Norkin, a question for you from Joel Zinberg. Has the understanding with Russian forces in Syria, the deconfliction mechanism, held, or is the relationship deteriorating and placing limits on Israel's ability to operate over Syria?
Well, till now, there is no limits from the Israeli side about our freedom of action. We keep the safety measures that we used to in the last few years since 2018. But I think that there is no issue today with the Russian military in Syria. And I think that this is not the main parameter that is supposed to be on the table once we are planning our activities.
Good to know. And our final question comes from Mindy Stein, who wants to know about the $10 billion sanctions waiver the Biden administration has just given Iran. How does that affect the situation in Israel and in the region?
$10 billion.
Any thoughts, General Amador?
1 minute. $10 billion is not a number which will change the cohesion of the economy of Iran. But every dollar which is going to Iran, those who are giving the dollars has to take into consideration that part of it will go to terrorist organizations, because all the terror organizations in the Middle East, all of them, were built by the Iranians with Iranian money. Even those which surprised the Iranians in this operation on 7th of October, the Hamas, they got money, munition, training, everything cost money. And money to Iran, meaning that it's easier for Iran to support those organizations and to build them.
Great. Well, thank you both, General Amador, General Norkin, in particular, with your light flu. We hope you feel better. Thank you for spending your evening with us. To all of you who tuned in, thank you for paying attention. Thank you for joining us. As always, I would commend you to our website, jinsa.org, to check out our latest analysis, in particular, the Gaza Futures report on what a day after in Gaza should look like, led by our very own John Hanna. And for the short version, you can read the column that Bret Stephens wrote in the New York Times about the report this week. You can find both of those on our website at jinsa.org. Once again, let me thank General Amador and General Norkin, and look forward to seeing everyone at next week's update. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.